Welcome to Enny's Diamond Stories, where we share meaningful, practical, and life-changing stories that strengthen marriages, families, and relationships. To our returning subscribers and those joining us for the first time, we are truly glad you are here. Today, we continue with part 5 of our newly married couples series. A very important and sensitive topic, walking through pregnancy and parenthood together. This story is not just emotional, it is intentional. It is designed to give a practical, real-life view of what many couples may face, especially in the early stages of marriage. Because sometimes the journey to parenthood is not as smooth as expected. Sometimes it comes with pressure, misunderstanding, silence, and moments that test the very foundation of love, patience, and faith. Before the silence, before the regrets, before the loss that changed everything, there was a beginning that felt simple, peaceful, and full of promise. Let us now walk into their journey and discover how a beautiful beginning slowly unfolded into something unexpected.
Long before silence filled their home, before regret settled into the walls of their small apartment, their story had once been full of warmth, laughter, and quiet dreams. They met in a place that neither of them had planned. It was not dramatic, it was not extraordinary, it was simple and real. The first time he noticed her, she was not trying to impress anyone. She stood quietly among others, helping to arrange chairs for a small gathering, moving with a calmness that made her presence easy to overlook, but difficult to forget. There was something about her that did not demand attention, yet slowly drew it. She smiled often, not loudly, not excessively, but gently. He was different. He was confident, organized, and already beginning to build a stable life in the city. He had clear goals and a strong sense of direction. People respected him because he was focused and dependable. He believed in structure, in order, in things being done the right way. Their first conversation was brief, polite, nothing remarkable, but it stayed with him. Over time, their paths crossed again and again. Each meeting added something small, something unnoticed at first, but meaningful. He began to admire her quiet strength, the way she listened more than she spoke, the way she carried herself with patience, the way she did things wholeheartedly, even when no one was watching. She, on the other hand, saw stability in him. She saw a man who knew what he wanted, a man who could lead, a man who seemed capable of building a good home. Their connection grew slowly. There was no rush, no pressure, just a steady unfolding of trust. When he finally expressed his interest, it was not with grand gestures, it was simple, direct. He spoke about the future, about building a home, about responsibility. She listened carefully, and when she agreed, it was not because of excitement alone, but because she believed in what he represented: stability, direction, commitment. Their courtship was calm. There were no loud conflicts, no dramatic disagreements. They understood each other. Or at least, they believed they did. But beneath that understanding, something subtle existed, something neither of them fully recognized. He valued structure more than sensitivity. He believed that providing financially was the highest form of care. To him, love was responsibility. Love was ensuring the home functioned well. Love was making sure there was food, shelter, and order. She valued connection more than structure. She believed love was shown through presence, through attention, through emotional support. These differences did not create problems at first, because life was still easy. There were no heavy demands, no physical strain, no emotional pressure. After their wedding, they moved into a modest apartment in the city. It was not large, but it was comfortable, and it became their space. She made it warm. She arranged the rooms with care. She cooked meals that filled the home with inviting aromas. She paid attention to details that made the space feel alive. He appreciated it, but quietly, without expression. To him, It was expected, not something to be celebrated. He loved coming home to fresh meals. He often spoke about it with pride. to friends, to colleagues, to anyone who would listen. He especially loved traditional meals, well prepared, freshly made, served exactly the way he liked them. Pounded yam was his favorite. It had to be perfect, and she learned how to make it exactly to his taste. In the beginning, she did it with joy. She enjoyed caring for him. She enjoyed building a home together. And because life was smooth, their differences remained hidden, unnoticed, unchallenged. There were small moments, very small ones, where she wished he would ask how she felt, where she hoped he would notice when she was tired, where she longed for a little more softness in his tone. But those moments passed quickly, because there was no real reason to dwell on them. Everything seemed fine, until the pregnancy came. The pregnancy did not create the problem. It revealed it. It exposed the gap between provision and presence, between responsibility and care, between expectation and understanding. What had once been small differences quietly became visible, and what had once been manageable slowly became heavy, because for the first time, she needed more than structure. She needed support. She needed attention. She needed to be seen. And for the first time, his way of loving was no longer enough. But by the time they both began to understand this, life had already moved forward, and some lessons were learned too late. The early months of the pregnancy brought joy. The small apartment felt brighter. The conversations were hopeful. There was laughter. There were plans. This was their first child, a new beginning, a new chapter. But as the weeks passed, something began to change, not in the pregnancy, but in the home. The husband was a man of routine. He worked hard. He provided financially. He believed that was enough. Every evening, he returned home expecting what he had always received: fresh food, hot meals, carefully prepared dishes. He especially loved pounded yam. It had to be soft, smooth, and served hot, never reheated. To him, that was normal. That was how a home should run. At first, his wife tried. She woke early. She cleaned. She cooked. She smiled. Even when her body began to slow down. Even when the smell of food made her uneasy. Even when standing too long made her dizzy. She still tried. There were days she paused in the kitchen, holding the edge of the table, waiting for the room to stop spinning. There were nights she lay awake, her body aching, her back heavy, her feet swollen. But the next morning, she rose again, because she believed that was what a good wife should do. Her husband noticed changes, but not the right ones. He noticed when food was late. He noticed when the soup was not freshly made. He noticed when the pounded yam was not as smooth as before. He noticed when things were not as he expected. He did not notice her quiet exhaustion. He did not notice how slowly she walked. He did not notice how often she sat down just to catch her breath. He did not notice the silent tears she wiped away when she turned her back. He often reminded her that pregnancy was not sickness, that women had been doing this for generations, that his own mother carried children and still took care of the home. To him, she simply needed to try harder. So she stopped explaining. She stopped expressing. She stopped asking for help. Her silence grew, and with it, her strength faded. One afternoon, while preparing soup, her hand slipped. Hot oil splashed against her skin. She gasped, stepping back, gripping the counter. Her heart raced, her body trembled, but when the pain settled, she returned to the pot, because dinner still had to be ready. Another evening, rain poured heavily outside. The power went out briefly. The kitchen became hot and dark. Still, she stood there, pounding yams slowly, each movement draining what little strength she had left. Her breathing became uneven. Her hands shook, but she continued. That night, her husband ate in silence. The food was good, but not perfect. He mentioned it, not harshly, not loudly, but enough to remind her that she had not done well. She nodded quietly, and went to bed without a word. Days turned into weeks. The pregnancy advanced. Her body grew heavier, her movements slower, her silence deeper. Then came the evening that changed everything. He returned home with unexpected guests, colleagues. He wanted to impress them, to show them his home, to show them his life, to show them the meals he often spoke about. She stood at the doorway, surprised. There had been no warning, no preparation, just expectation. She forced a smile, walked into the kitchen, and began. The house filled with voices and laughter, but the kitchen held a different sound. Heavy breathing, quiet strain. the sound of a woman pushing beyond her limit. Time passed. Food was served. The guests were satisfied. The evening seemed successful, but when the door closed behind them, she did not follow him to the living room. She remained in the kitchen, leaning against the wall, her hand pressed tightly against her stomach. Something was wrong. At first, he did not notice. He called her. No response. He walked into the kitchen and saw her, bent slightly, breathing heavily, sweat covering her face. Concern replaced irritation. For the first time in a long time, he looked closely. The pain had begun. At first, he thought it was nothing serious, just discomfort, something that would pass. But the pain did not pass. It grew, stronger, closer, more urgent. Panic slowly entered the room. The same man who once complained about food temperature now moved restlessly, looking for keys, calling for help, rushing, shouting. The night air felt heavier than usual. What had started as discomfort quickly turned into something urgent, something frightening. She could no longer stand. Her hands trembled as she held onto him, her breathing uneven, her strength almost gone. For the first time in a long while, he saw beyond the routine of life, beyond expectations, beyond meals and order. He saw her pain. They rushed out of the house in panic. The drive to the hospital felt longer than it actually was. Every second stretched. Every sound felt louder. Her grip tightened around his hand as waves of pain ran through her body. When they arrived, everything moved quickly. Nurses rushed forward. Voices overlapped. Instructions were given. She was placed on a hospital bed and wheeled away immediately. He followed closely, but there came a point where he had to stop. A door closed between them, and suddenly, he was alone. The bright hospital lights did nothing to ease the darkness building inside him. He sat down, then stood up again, walked a few steps, stopped, sat again. Nothing felt steady. Inside the delivery room, everything was intense. Doctors and nurses moved with urgency. Machines beeped steadily. Her body struggled. Her strength was low, too low. One of the doctors spoke firmly to the team. There were complications. Her body was not responding the way it should. Her system was exhausted, weakened. Time passed, but it did not feel like time. It felt like waiting inside a storm. Outside, he sat with his head in his hands. For the first time, silence began to speak to him. Memories returned, not as distant thoughts, but as sharp, undeniable truths. He remembered the times she tried to speak. He remembered how quickly he dismissed her. He remembered the evenings she stood in the kitchen, tired, yet still cooking. He remembered her silence, and now, that silence echoed louder than anything he had ever heard. The door finally opened. A doctor stepped out slowly, calm, but serious. He stood up immediately, his heart racing.
There were complications during the delivery. Her body had gone through too much stress during the pregnancy. The baby did not survive.
The doctor looked at him carefully before speaking. There was a pause, a heavy one. Then the words came. There were complications during the delivery. He felt his chest tighten. The doctor continued, choosing his words carefully. Her body had gone through too much stress during the pregnancy. Physical strain, emotional exhaustion, lack of adequate rest, all of it had weakened her. Her body could not sustain the pressure of labor. There was another pause, and then the truth came fully. The baby did not survive. Everything around him became still. The sounds of the hospital faded. The movement, the voices, everything. He stood there, unable to move, unable to speak, not because he did not understand, but because he understood too well. The doctor placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, not to explain further.
She is stable now, but she needs rest and care. I had been present, but absent in care.
That word stayed with him, because suddenly he realized something painful. He had been present in the home, but absent in care. He slowly sat back down, his hands trembling, his thoughts heavy, and for the first time, he wished he could go back to the moments he ignored, back to the times he could have listened, back to the opportunities to care. But time does not return, and some lessons come with a cost that cannot be undone. When he was finally allowed to see her, the room was quiet, too quiet. She lay on the bed, her body still, her face pale, her eyes half closed. There was no sign of the woman who had once moved around the house with quiet determination, no trace of the strength she had forced herself to carry. He walked slowly toward her, each step heavier than the last. When he reached the bedside, he stopped, not because he wanted to, but because he did not know what to say. Her eyes opened slightly. She looked at him, not with anger, not with accusation, but with a kind of tired awareness, and in that moment, he understood something he had never understood before. She had gone through all of it. Without him, he sat down beside her and gently took her hand. It felt lighter than he remembered, weaker. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out, because no apology could undo what had already happened. No explanation could justify what he had ignored. So he sat there in silence, holding her hand, feeling the weight of everything he had failed to see. When they eventually returned home, the house did not feel the same. Everything was exactly where it had always been, but nothing felt familiar. The small space that had once been filled with expectation now felt empty, not physically empty, but emotionally hollow. The kitchen stood quiet, the pots untouched, the mortar and pestle resting where they had last been used. He walked into the kitchen one evening and stood there for a long time, looking at the space where she had spent so many hours, where she had stood through pain, where she had pushed herself beyond her limit. For the first time, he imagined what those moments must have felt like. The heat, the dizziness, the exhaustion, the loneliness, and something inside him broke completely. From that day, things began to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly. He no longer complained about food. He no longer demanded fresh meals. Sometimes, he prepared something simple himself. Other times, he ate whatever was available without a word. But these changes did not come from discipline. They came from regret, because every act of care now felt like something he should have done earlier. When she was pregnant with the second baby, everything was different. This time, he was no longer just a provider. He was present. He noticed the small things. The way she moved more slowly. The moments she needed to sit. The quiet signs he once ignored. The kitchen was no longer her burden alone. He stood beside her, sometimes cooking, sometimes cleaning, sometimes simply saying, "Rest. I've got this." His voice became softer. His actions became louder. Love was no longer assumed. It was shown. He checked on her constantly. He walked with her. He listened, and for the first time, she did not carry the journey alone. Their home felt different, not perfect, but peaceful, because this time, he understood that care is not optional, and love must be lived, not just spoken.
There are moments in life when we believe there will always be another chance, another opportunity to do better, another day to correct what we ignored. But life does not always wait, and some seasons come with a responsibility that cannot be postponed. Pregnancy is not just a physical condition. It is a journey that demands support, patience, understanding, and presence. And when a woman walks that journey alone, even in a house that is not empty, something important is missing. In many homes, love is assumed, care is delayed, and responsibility is misunderstood. But love is not proven in comfort. It is proven in sacrifice, in attention, in presence, especially when the other person is weak. Because sometimes what is neglected in silence can result in a loss that speaks forever. A wife should never feel alone in a season meant to be shared. Her husband's role is not only to provide, but to stand, support, and care. And in moments that matter most, love must be seen, not assumed. A husband must support his wife physically and emotionally, especially during pregnancy. Providing money is not enough. Presence and care matter deeply. Neglect in marriage can lead to painful and irreversible consequences. Silence in a partner may be a sign of deep pain, not peace. Love must be shown through actions, especially in moments of weakness. If this story has touched your hearts or made you reflect, we invite you to stay connected with Enny's Diamond Stories. Please like, share, and subscribe so more families can learn, grow, and build stronger homes. We'll also like to hear from you how your pregnancy journey went, because sometimes a story can open eyes before it becomes too late. Till we come your way again, remain blessed. Bye.